The sheets are cool in some places and damp in others. Maybe the room is dark. Maybe the house is quiet. Maybe you wake before you understand why, with your shirt clinging lightly to your back, the pillow warm beneath your neck, and that strange, private awareness that something happened in your body while you were gone. You were asleep. You were not running. You were not standing in the sun. You were not doing anything at all. And yet, here you are, awake in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat. If you have searched for why this happens, especially after 50, the first answer is this: your body is built to cool itself at night. Sleep is not just a shutting down. It is a carefully managed change in temperature, blood flow, hormones, breathing, and repair. Every night, as sleep approaches, the body begins moving heat out toward the skin, so the deeper core can drift downward into the cooler range that supports sleep. Most of the time, this is quiet. You never notice it. Your hands may warm a little. Your feet may warm a little. The skin may become a gentle doorway for heat to leave the body. But sometimes that cooling system is pushed harder than usual. Sometimes the body is too warm under heavy bedding. Sometimes hormones narrow the temperature window. Sometimes breathing is breaking the night. Sometimes a medication, a blood sugar swing, reflux, thyroid activity, alcohol, stress in the background, or another health pattern presses on the same quiet thermostat. And then the cooling system that was meant to be invisible becomes visible. It becomes sweat. It becomes damp sheets. It becomes waking up and wondering whether this is normal, whether this is aging, whether this is hormones, or whether your body is trying to tell you something more important. Tonight, we are going to move through that story slowly. Not with alarm, not with a long list meant to make the night feel unsafe, but with the calm understanding that the body is not betraying you when it sweats. It is trying to regulate something. It is trying to protect a range. It is trying to keep the inner climate steady enough for sleep. And for many adults over 50, this becomes a very real part of the night. It can be embarrassing. It can be frustrating. It can feel oddly lonely because people do not always talk about changing clothes at 2 in the morning, or turning the pillow over again and again, or waking with a cool dampness on the chest and wondering whether to ignore it or make the appointment. So, we will give it room. We will begin with the ordinary nightly cooling wave, the one your body uses whether you sweat or not. Then, we will follow the places where that wave can become too strong. The narrowed temperature window of menopause, the quieter but real hormone changes that can happen in men, the breathing disruptions that sometimes announce themselves through sweat, the medications and glucose swings that can nudge the body awake, the thyroid and reflux patterns that belong in a clinician conversation, and the simple, fixable things, like a bedroom that has become too warm for the body you have now. And later, gently, we will separate the common from the worth checking, because both are true. Night sweats are widely reported in midlife and older adulthood, and most causes are explainable. And persistent, drenching night sweats, especially when they arrive with other unexplained body-wide symptoms, are worth discussing with a qualified clinician. That is not fear. That is care. If this kind of calm sleep science helps you understand your body with less worry, you can like the video or subscribe so the next one can find you when you need it. And now, let the night slow again. Picture the body as a quiet house with its own climate system. All day, the heat of life has been moving through it. Muscles have burned fuel. The brain has used energy. The heart has worked without stopping. The liver has processed, stored, released, adjusted. Cells have taken in nutrients and produced warmth as a natural result of being alive. You do not feel most of this heat as heat. It is simply the background warmth of metabolism. It is the small fire of being here. During the day, your body temperature does not stay perfectly flat. It rises and falls in a daily rhythm. The brain keeps time. The nervous system adjusts blood vessels. Hormones rise and fade. Activity adds heat. Rest allows heat to settle. And as night approaches, a different pattern begins. Your core temperature starts to drift downward. This does not mean the whole body becomes cold. It means the deeper body, the inner body, begins releasing heat toward the surface. The hands and feet can become warmer because tiny blood vessels open wider. Warm blood moves closer to the skin. Heat leaves into the room, into the sheets, into the small airspace around you. This is one of the gentle paradoxes of sleep. To cool the inside, the outside may warm. The skin becomes a shoreline. The inner heat comes toward it like a tide, and the room receives it. In sleep research, this cooling of the core is closely tied to the movement into non-rapid eye movement sleep, especially the deeper, quieter sleep of the first part of the night. When the body is able to release heat well, sleep can arrive more easily. When the body cannot release heat well, sleep can become lighter, more restless, more interrupted. This is why a warm bath or shower before bed can sometimes help sleep, even though it sounds backward at first. The warm water heats the skin. The blood vessels in the hands, feet, arms, and legs open. Then, after you step out, the body begins letting that heat go. The surface has warmed, the doorway has opened, and the core can cool. So the goal is not to become cold. The goal is to make heat movement easy. A body ready for sleep is not a frozen body. It is a body in quiet thermal balance, able to let warmth leave without fighting the room. Most nights, this system is elegant. The hypothalamus, deep in the brain, helps coordinate the temperature range. It receives signals from the body and from the environment. It senses whether the internal climate is drifting too warm or too cool. It helps decide when blood vessels should widen, when the skin should release heat, when shivering should create heat, and when sweating should help remove heat. You do not have to think about any of this. You do not have to ask your blood vessels to open. You do not have to instruct the skin to release warmth. The body was built with these quiet adjustments already inside it. But every system has a range. A thermostat works best when the room is not being pushed too far in either direction. A car engine cools best when the fan, coolant, airflow, and sensors are all working together. A house stays comfortable when the outside weather, insulation, and heating system are not fighting each other all night. The body is more delicate than a machine, but the image helps. There is an inner climate. There is a range in which sleep feels easier. And when something pushes that inner climate outside the range, the body responds. One response is sweating. Sweat is not random water appearing on the skin. It is a cooling tool. When sweat reaches the skin and evaporates, it carries heat away. That is why sweat can be so effective during exercise or heat exposure. At night, though, sweat can feel confusing because the trigger may not be obvious. You may not be hot in the usual way. The room may not feel extreme. The fan may be on. The window may be cracked. And still, the body may be acting as if heat has crossed a line. That is where the story becomes deeper. Because after 50, the temperature line itself can change. The body may not have the same wide, forgiving range it once had. The same bedding that felt fine 10 years ago may now hold too much warmth. The same glass of wine that seemed harmless may now widen blood vessels, fragment sleep, and leave the body more reactive. The same mild airway obstruction may now create enough arousal to trigger sweating. The same medication may now interact with age, sleep, and temperature differently. The same small rise in core temperature may now feel, to the brain, like something that must be corrected. And when the correction arrives, it does not always arrive gently. Sometimes it arrives as a wave: heat, then flushing, then sweat, then waking, then the mind catching up to what the body has already done. This is especially familiar to many women in the menopause transition and after it, but the larger story belongs to both women and men. Hormones help tune the temperature system. They do not simply affect reproduction, they influence blood vessels, brain chemistry, sleep stability, mood, metabolism, and the size of the thermal window the body feels safe inside. When that window narrows, the body can overcorrect. Imagine a quiet hallway with a thermostat on the wall. In younger adulthood, for many people, the acceptable range may feel wider. A tiny rise in temperature might be ignored. A small fluctuation might pass unnoticed. The body makes a minor adjustment, and sleep continues. But when the range narrows, a tiny rise can cross the line. The body reads it as too warm. The cooling response turns on. Blood vessels open, the skin warms, sweat glands activate. And what might have been a small internal shift becomes a full body event. This is one of the central mechanisms behind hot flashes and night sweats in the menopause transition. The research often describes a narrowed thermoneutral zone, which means the comfortable temperature band between sweating and shivering has become smaller. When that band is wide, the body has room to drift. When it is narrow, small changes can trigger a larger response. In some studies of symptomatic postmenopausal women, that temperature window appears almost collapsed compared with women without hot flashes. Picture the difference. In a wide window, your core temperature can drift up and down through a comfortable band, small changes the body simply absorbs, the way a large room barely notices one open window. But when the band narrows, that room becomes a narrow hallway. The margin shrinks toward a sliver. A rise so small you would never feel it in daylight is now enough to touch the far wall. And when it touches the wall, the alarm does not whisper. It opens every cooling response at once. That is a striking idea, not because it means the body is broken, but because it explains why the experience can feel so disproportionate. You may think, why would I be sweating this much? The room is not that hot. I was not that warm. Nothing happened. But inside the body, something did happen. The threshold was crossed. The cooling response opened quickly. The skin became the release valve. And in the dark, the result is not a graph or a lab measurement. It is the cotton of a shirt against damp skin. It is the pillowcase holding heat. It is waking with the strange sense that your body has been working while you were absent. For many women, these vasomotor symptoms, meaning hot flashes and night sweats, do not last only a few weeks. Large longitudinal research following women across the menopause transition found that frequent symptoms can last for years. The median duration in one major study was about 7 years, and symptoms often continued for several years after the final menstrual period. That matters because many people are told, directly or indirectly, that this should be brief, that it should be tolerated quietly, that it is just part of life and therefore not worth understanding. But something can be common and still deserve care. Something can be part of a life stage and still be disruptive. Something can be explainable and still be exhausting when it steals sleep, night after night. And the night sweat itself is only one layer. There is the waking, there is the cooling afterward, when damp skin meets cooler air. There is the changing of clothes. There is the worry about the mattress or the pillow or the person beside you. There is the next morning, when the body feels as if it has lost some of the night's repair. There is the quiet frustration of not knowing whether to adjust the bedding, call a doctor, ask about hormones, check a medication, or simply hope it passes. So let us slow it down. The sweat is not the whole message. It is the visible sign of an invisible regulation problem. The question is not only, why am I sweating? The deeper question is, what is pushing my body's cooling system hard enough that it has to announce itself at night? For many women over 50, one answer is the shifting estrogen environment and the way it changes the body's thermal thresholds. Estrogen interacts with neurotransmitter systems involved in temperature regulation. When estrogen declines, and when certain arousal chemistry in the brain becomes more active, the body's temperature control window may narrow. The result is not simply feeling warm, it is a coordinated heat loss response. Flushing, sweating, and sometimes a strong waking. Think of it as the thermostat's set point being nudged downward. The same quiet alertness chemistry that would ready you to move by day, stirring faintly in the dark, tells the body that ordinary warmth is now too much. Nothing in the Chiyo's room has changed. The line inside you has. This is why a night sweat can feel like it comes from the inside out, because in a sense, it does. The room may contribute, the blanket may contribute, but the wave itself is organized from within. The brain decides that cooling is needed. The blood vessels obey, the sweat glands obey, the skin becomes warm and wet, and sleep is interrupted. But this is not only a women's story. Men can experience nighttime sweating connected to hormone changes too, though the pattern is usually different and less universal. Age-related testosterone decline or late-onset hypogonadism in some men can be associated with hot flashes and night sweats. It should not be self-diagnosed from sweating alone. It belongs in the category of patterns to discuss with a clinician, especially if it appears alongside other symptoms and confirmed lab findings. That distinction matters. The goal here is not to send anyone into the night diagnosing themselves. The goal is to make the map clearer. Hormones can tune the thermostat. For women, the menopause transition is a major and common pathway into night sweats. For men, low testosterone can be one possible pathway among others. For everyone, the body is still trying to regulate heat. The pathway may differ, the lived experience may differ, but the damp sheet at 3 in the morning can feel very similar. And there is another reason to keep this story inclusive. Many people over 50 are dealing with more than one driver at the same time. A woman may have menopause-related night sweats and sleep apnea. A man may have reflux, medication effects, and a warmer bedroom than his body can now tolerate. Someone with diabetes may have glucose swings and heavy bedding. Someone under stress may sleep more lightly, wake more easily, and notice sweats that were once slept through. The body does not divide life into neat categories. It receives everything at once. Hormones, room temperature, medication timing, alcohol, blood sugar, breathing, inflammation, digestion, the season of life. Then it tries to keep the inner climate steady. This is why the answer to night sweats is rarely one sentence. But the first sentence remains simple. Your body is trying to cool. Now we ask why it has to try so hard. One of the most important pathways and one of the easiest to miss is breathing. If you have spent a night with the story of breathing breaking sleep, you already know that the airway can quietly shape the entire night. When breathing repeatedly narrows or pauses during sleep, the body may respond with arousals, changes in oxygen, changes in heart rate, and shifts in stress physiology. Tonight's story does not need to retell the airway mechanism. The point is narrower. Obstructive sleep apnea is a recognized cause of nocturnal sweating. In a large sleep apnea cohort, frequent night sweating was reported much more often in untreated sleep apnea than in the general population. And with effective positive airway pressure treatment, frequent sweating dropped substantially. You may wonder why breathing trouble would show itself as sweat, of all things. The link is effort. Each time the airway narrows and the body works to reopen it, there is a small surge. The heart quickens, blood pressure lifts, the nervous system brightens for a moment to rescue the breath. That surge is not free. It carries heat, and heat that arrives in a body already trying to cool has one obvious exit: the skin. So the sweat is not really about temperature at all. It is the residue of a rescue that happened while you slept, repeated quietly all night long. That does not mean every person who sweats at night has sleep apnea. It means that if night sweats arrive with loud snoring, witnessed pauses in breathing, gasping, morning headaches, dry mouth, daytime sleepiness, high blood pressure, or the feeling that sleep is never refreshing, breathing belongs on the list, not as a fear, as a clue. The body may be sweating because the night is not as still as it looks from the outside. The room may be quiet. The person may appear asleep. But inside, the body may be working. It may be reopening the airway. It may be shifting out of deeper sleep. It may be turning up arousal systems again and again. And sweat can be part of that repeated effort. For someone over 50, this matters because sleep apnea becomes more common with age, body composition changes, anatomy, hormones, and other health patterns. It also matters because treatment can change the night. When the breathing driver is treated, the sweating driver may quiet too. That is one of the hopeful parts of this whole story. Night sweats can feel mysterious, but they are not always mysterious. Sometimes they are downstream of something specific, and when the upstream pressure is reduced, the sweat may no longer need to appear. The same idea applies to medications, though the path is different. Some medications can affect sweating, body temperature, sleep architecture, or the nervous system's heat responses. Primary care reviews list several categories that can be associated with night sweats, including some antidepressants, steroids, thyroid medications, hormone-related medicines, and others, the kind of list only a prescriber or pharmacist can weigh against your own situation. This does not mean a medication is wrong. It does not mean anyone should stop a prescription because of a night sweat episode. It means the prescriber conversation matters, especially if the timing lines up, if the sweats began after a new medication, or after a dose change, or after moving a dose later in the day, or after combining a medication with alcohol, heavier meals, or disrupted sleep. Then the medication list is not just paperwork. It is part of the body's climate story. The physician or pharmacist can look at what changed, what can be adjusted, what should not be changed, and what other causes should be checked. For the listener in bed tonight, the message is simple. Do not panic. Do not self-cancel a prescription, but do notice patterns. The body often gives its clues in timing. When did this start? How often does it happen? Is it every night or only after certain evenings? Is it linked to a medicine, a meal, alcohol, stress, a room temperature, or waking gasping? Those questions turn a vague symptom into a useful conversation. Another pathway is blood sugar. This one needs careful language because it belongs in a medical context, especially for people with diabetes or those using glucose-lowering medications. Low blood sugar during sleep can trigger an autonomic response, the body's counter-regulation system. Adrenaline can rise. The body can try to correct the low glucose state. Sweating can be part of that response. For some people, the sweating may be one of the few signs that something happened overnight. But this is not a diagnosis from a damp shirt. Many things can cause night sweats. The safe message is narrower. If someone has diabetes, uses insulin or certain glucose-lowering medications, wakes sweaty with shakiness, confusion, hunger, nightmares, morning headaches, or unusual fatigue, then overnight blood sugar patterns are worth discussing with a clinician. Not because the night has to become frightening, because the body may be asking for a safer rhythm. Food timing, medication timing, alcohol, exercise, illness, and sleep quality can all interact with overnight glucose. The body is not a set of separate drawers, it is one living system. The same evening can contain dinner, medicine, stress, a warm bedroom, a glass of wine, and a sleep cycle trying to deepen. The body receives all of it and tries to keep balance until morning. And sometimes the sweat is the sign that balance was harder than usual. The thyroid can also belong in this map. The thyroid gland helps regulate metabolism, the pace at which the body uses energy. When thyroid activity is too high, the whole body can feel as if its internal engine has been turned up. Heat intolerance, sweating, a racing or irregular heartbeat, weight changes, tremor, anxiety-like sensations, and sleep disturbance can all appear in that larger picture. Again, not every night's sweat points there. Most do not. But when sweating comes with a body that feels revved, warmer than usual, restless, lighter in weight without trying, or newly sensitive to heat, thyroid testing may be one of the simple, standard things a clinician considers. This is part of why the red flag and check-in conversation exists. Not because every symptom is dangerous, because some causes are simple to look for, some causes are treatable, and some causes should not be guessed at in the dark. The same is true of reflux, though it seems at first like it belongs to a different system. Reflux is a digestive issue. Night sweats are a temperature issue. Why would they meet? But the body does not experience reflux as a neat label. It experiences irritation, arousal, discomfort, sometimes coughing, sometimes a sour taste, sometimes chest or throat sensation, sometimes a partial waking before the mind has words for it. Anything that repeatedly pulls the body out of deeper sleep can bring the nervous system closer to the surface, and a body closer to the surface may sweat more easily. Reflux is also linked with evening patterns. Late meals, large meals, alcohol, certain foods, lying flat too soon, and weight around the abdomen. These are not moral categories. They are mechanical and chemical pressures. The stomach is full. The valve between stomach and esophagus may not hold as firmly. Gravity is no longer helping. The body lies down and the night becomes less quiet. For some people, addressing reflux patterns may reduce night waking, coughing, throat irritation, and the heat or sweat that comes with arousal. For others, reflux is not involved at all. The map is not a verdict, it is a way of seeing. Then there is the simplest layer, and it deserves more respect than it usually gets. The room. The blanket, the pajamas, the mattress, the season, the evening drink, the heating system that runs differently at night, the dog on the bed, the partner who needs 3 blankets while your body needs 1, the mattress topper that holds heat beautifully in winter and too beautifully in summer, the pillow that warms under the neck, the comforter that used to feel cozy and now feels like insulation around a furnace. This layer can sound too simple, as if it is not worthy of serious attention. But for a body over 50, the simple layer is often where biology meets daily life. If the thermoneutral window has narrowed, then the room that used to work may not work now. If hormones have made the heat loss response more reactive, heavy bedding can become a trigger. If sleep apnea or reflux is also present, a warm room may add one more pressure to a system already working harder. If alcohol widens blood vessels and fragments sleep, then a heavy comforter may turn the second half of the night into a heat trap. This is why the first practical questions are not trivial. What is the room temperature doing across the night? Does the heat come on in the early morning? Are the sheets breathable? Does the pillow hold warmth around the head and neck? Do the sweats happen more after alcohol? Do they happen more after late meals? Do they happen more under certain bedding? Do they happen more in one season? Do they happen more when stress has made sleep lighter? These questions are not meant to turn bedtime into a project. They are meant to give you handles, something to observe, something to adjust gently. A cooler room, a lighter layer, breathable fabric, a separate blanket from a partner, less alcohol close to bed, a little more space between dinner and lying down. A fan that moves air without making the room feel harsh. Small changes do not solve every night sweat, but they can lower the pressure on the system. They can give the body less heat to fight. And sometimes that is enough to turn a drenching wake-up into a warm moment that passes. There is a quiet dignity in trying the simple things first. Not because the symptom is imagined, not because it is all in your head, but because the body is physical. The skin touches fabric. The lungs breathe room air. The blood vessels respond to warmth. The stomach responds to timing. The nervous system responds to alcohol, stress, breathing, and hormones. Sleep is not floating above daily life. It is daily life continuing in the dark. So if you wake drenched, the first response can be calm observation. Not what is wrong with me, but what was the body regulating? What pressure was it under? Was it heat? Was it a hormone wave? Was it breathing? Was it reflux? Was it a medication? Was it glucose? Was it illness? Was it something repeating often enough that it deserves help? That last question matters, because the body may sweat for ordinary reasons, and it may also sweat as part of a pattern that should be checked. The art is learning not to ignore everything and not to fear everything. Most people need a middle path. Calm attention, a few practical adjustments, pattern tracking, and a clinician conversation when the pattern asks for one. Persistent, drenching night sweats deserve more respect than occasional warmth. There is a difference between waking a little warm because the room was too hot and repeatedly soaking clothing or bedding. There is a difference between one night after alcohol and week after week of sweat with no obvious trigger. There is a difference between a menopause pattern you recognize and new sweats arriving with unexplained weight loss, objective fever, swollen lymph nodes, easy bruising or bleeding, unusual fatigue, or a body that simply feels unwell in a new way. If those things are present, the right move is not to lie awake, making a list of worst possibilities. The right move is to make the appointment. Let a clinician do what clinicians are trained to do. Take a history, examine, check medications, consider sleep apnea, consider thyroid, consider infection when appropriate, consider inflammatory or blood-related causes when appropriate, and order the basic tests that make sense. The presence of night sweats alone does not mean the body is in danger, but persistent, drenching sweats with other systemic signs are worth evaluating. This is the calmest way to say it. The night does not need a frightening story. It needs a wise one. And wisdom can be gentle. It can say, "This is probably explainable." And it can also say, "Let us not dismiss a repeated body signal." In the middle of the night, those two thoughts can coexist. You can be reassured and attentive. You can be calm and responsible. You can be curious without becoming afraid. Now, let the science soften for a moment. Think again of the body as a house at night. The windows are closed, or maybe one is cracked. The heating system is quiet. The rooms have cooled. Somewhere behind the walls, small adjustments are being made. Air moves, pipes settle. The house holds the warmth of the day and releases it slowly into darkness. Your body is doing something like this. It has held the warmth of the day. It has carried you through meals, movement, thought, responsibility, conversation, stress, light, errands, work, family, worry, and all the small tasks that make up a life. Then night comes. The body tries to change states. It tries to lower the inner temperature. It tries to open the skin. It tries to deepen sleep. It tries to repair. It tries to keep breathing steady. It tries to balance hormones. It tries to keep glucose within range. It tries to digest what remains. It tries to keep the heart in rhythm. It tries to watch for infection, inflammation, and signals from every organ system. You call it sleeping. But the body calls it regulation, and regulation is active. Quiet, but active. This is why night sweats can feel so personal. They happen when you are not performing, not managing, not deciding, not presenting yourself to the world. They happen when you are most unguarded. The body speaks in the language of damp cloth and sudden waking. It brings you back from sleep before you are ready. And if it happens again and again, it can change the way you approach bedtime. You may begin to wonder, will it happen tonight? Should I wear something lighter? Should I sleep on a towel? Should I say something to my partner? Should I turn the heat down? Should I worry? Will I wake soaked again? This anticipatory layer can make the symptom heavier. The sweat is physical, but the waiting becomes emotional. A person may begin to sleep more lightly because part of them is watching for the next wave. And lighter sleep notices more, it hears more, it feels more, it wakes more easily. So one of the healing moves is to bring the experience out of the vague dark and into a calmer map, not to control every variable, just to name enough of them that the night feels less mysterious. There is the cooling wave. There is the narrowed window. There is the skin releasing heat. There are hormones. There is breathing. There are medicines and timing. There is glucose for those in that context. There is thyroid and reflux. There is bedding and room heat. There are red flags worth respecting. And there is the reassuring truth that many causes are manageable. When menopause is part of the story, there are clinician-guided options and lifestyle adjustments that may help. When sleep apnea is part of the story, evaluation and treatment can change the night dramatically for some people. When medication timing is part of the story, a prescriber may be able to adjust the plan. When glucose is part of the story, monitoring and medical guidance can make the night safer. When the room is part of the story, the environment can be changed tonight. When reflux is part of the story, timing, positioning, food patterns, and treatment can be discussed. When thyroid is part of the story, testing can reveal it. When the sweat is a clue to something less common, the right workup can begin. None of this requires panic. It requires companionship with your own body. The body after 50 is not the body of 30. That sentence can feel unfair, but it can also become compassionate. The body has carried more years. It has adapted through more seasons. Its hormones are different. Its sleep architecture may be different. Its muscles, vessels, metabolism, and nervous system may be carrying histories that were not there before. It may be more sensitive to heat, more sensitive to alcohol, more sensitive to disrupted breathing, more sensitive to late meals, more sensitive to stress that used to be shrugged off. This does not mean decline is the only story. It means the controls may need to be understood again. The body may require a cooler room, more breathable bedding, better breathing support, different evening timing, a medication review, a clinician conversation, more patience, more respect. You are not failing because the old settings no longer work. You are learning the new settings of a body that is still trying to care for you. That is a very different frame. Instead of fighting the sweat as an enemy, you can begin to ask what the sweat is trying to solve. Too much heat held close to the skin? A hormone threshold crossed? A breath interrupted? A glucose dip? A medication effect? Reflux pulling the nervous system upward? Thyroid activity turning the engine too high? An illness signal needing attention? Or simply a room that no longer matches the body inside it? Each possibility has a different next step. That is why the map matters. Not to make the night complicated, to make it navigable. And as you listen, you do not need to solve your own case tonight. You do not need to make a plan before sleep. You do not need to rehearse appointments or search symptoms in the dark. Tonight is for understanding. Tomorrow is for action, if action is needed. The night can return to being night. Let the mind rest on that for a moment. Understanding does not have to become urgency. It can become steadiness. The first layer of steadiness is the ordinary cooling wave. Every night, the body tries to let heat go. The hands and feet may warm. The skin may open. The core may cool. Sleep may deepen. This is not a flaw. It is part of the design. The second layer is the threshold. Sometimes the body reaches the sweating line more easily than it used to. In menopause, that line can become much closer. In some men with low testosterone, temperature symptoms can appear. In lighter, more fragmented sleep, the body may notice and respond to smaller shifts. The third layer is pressure from other systems. Breathing, medication, glucose, thyroid, digestion, alcohol, bedding, room heat, illness. Each one can push the climate system in its own way. The fourth layer is pattern. One night is information. A repeating pattern is stronger information. A repeating pattern with other unexplained symptoms is a reason to bring someone qualified into the conversation. The fifth layer is hope. Because a system that is being pushed can often be supported. If the room is too warm, the room can be cooled. If bedding traps heat, layers can be changed. If alcohol is a trigger, timing can be adjusted. If apnea is present, breathing can be treated. If medication is involved, the plan can be reviewed. If glucose is swinging, the pattern can be evaluated. If thyroid is overactive, it can be tested and addressed. If menopause symptoms are severe, they can be discussed with someone who takes them seriously. If something less common is present, finding it is better than fearing it alone. The body is not asking you to become your own doctor. It may simply be asking you not to ignore the pattern, and it may also be asking for gentler conditions. A cooler room, an easier fabric, less heat trapped around the neck, a pillow that releases warmth, a glass of water nearby, a way to change a layer without fully waking the mind. A plan written down in daylight so the night does not have to hold it. These details sound small, but sleep is made of small details. The angle of the pillow, the temperature of the room, the weight of the blanket, the rhythm of the breath, the timing of dinner, the chemistry of a medication, the quiet of the mind. The body attends to all of it. And when the body sweats, it is not making a speech. It is making an adjustment. The adjustment may be clumsy. It may be uncomfortable. It may wake you. But it is still an attempt at regulation. That is the compassionate center of tonight's story. Your body is not against you. It is trying to return you to a safer range. Now, in the deeper half of the night, the story can begin to slow. We have followed the science far enough to see the pattern. The body cools to sleep. The skin helps release heat. Hormones can narrow the window. Breathing can disturb the night. Medications, glucose, thyroid, reflux, alcohol, bedding, and room temperature can all add pressure. Persistent, drenching sweats with other unexplained symptoms deserve a clinician's eye. And beneath all of that is a simpler truth. The body wants balance. It wants the inner waters steady. It wants the heat to leave at the right pace. It wants sleep to deepen without interruption. It wants the room, the skin, the breath, the blood, and the brain to agree. When they do not agree, sweat may appear. When they do agree, the cooling wave can pass quietly. Maybe this is why a cool room can feel so merciful. Not cold, just cool enough that the body does not have to fight. Cool enough that heat can leave without a surge. Cool enough that the pillow does not become a pocket of warmth. Cool enough that the skin can release what it needs to release. Cool enough that sleep can keep going. There is a kind of kindness in arranging the room for the body you have now, not the body you had years ago, not the body you think you should have. This body, tonight's body, the one that has carried you here. For someone over 50, that can be a powerful shift. So much health advice speaks as if the body is a project to conquer. But night sweats do not respond well to being conquered. They ask to be understood. They ask for the softer skill of noticing. Notice whether the sweat begins in the first part of the night or toward morning. Notice whether it follows a certain meal or drink. Notice whether it appears with dreams, gasping or a racing heart. Notice whether it feels like a wave of heat from the chest, neck, and face. Notice whether the room is warm when you wake. Notice whether the pillow is the heat trap. Notice whether it began after a medication change. Notice whether there are daytime symptoms too. Notice whether the pattern is getting better, worse, or staying the same. These are not night thoughts. They are daylight notes. If you wake drenched tonight, you do not have to solve it at the bedside. You can change what is wet. You can sip water. You can turn the pillow. You can loosen the blanket. You can let the body cool. And then, instead of searching in the dark, you can tell yourself, I will notice the pattern tomorrow. Tomorrow has light. Tomorrow has paper. Tomorrow has appointments, messages, medication bottles, room thermometers, laundry, and practical choices. Tonight has rest. Even interrupted rest is still rest. Even a night that wakes you can still return you to sleep. The body can cool again. The sheets can be changed. The room can settle. The mind can let go of the question for now. This is not denial. It is timing. The body has its timing, and so does care. There is a time to observe, a time to call, a time to adjust, a time to test, a time to treat, and a time to lie back down, because the next useful step is not available until morning. For many people, the fear around night sweats is not only the sweat itself, it is the unknown. The mind steps into the empty space and begins filling it. It imagines explanations before evidence arrives. It turns one symptom into a landscape. But a map helps the mind stop inventing. The map says, temperature regulation first. The map says, hormones are common. The map says, breathing can matter. The map says, medications can matter. The map says, glucose can matter in the right context. The map says, thyroid, reflux, room heat, alcohol, and bedding can belong here too. The map says most causes are not rare catastrophes. The map also says, do not ignore persistent, drenching sweats with other unexplained signs. That is enough for tonight. Enough to be calm, enough to be responsible, enough to stop spiraling. The body after 50 deserves that balanced attention. Not dismissal, not dread. Attention. The kind of attention that says, I am listening, and I am not afraid to get help if the pattern asks for it. Now let us return to the cooling wave itself. Imagine lying in a room that is just slightly cool. The air is soft. The blanket is not heavy. The neck is free. The pillow is cool against the side of the face. Under the skin, blood vessels are adjusting their small openings. Warmth comes outward from the center, not in a rush, not in a surge, just a slow release. The hands soften, the feet soften. The body lets heat leave. The core begins its descent. This is one of the reasons deep sleep often gathers earlier in the night, when the body's temperature rhythm is moving downward. Sleep and temperature are not separate. They lean into each other. The cooling helps sleep, and sleep changes cooling. The body is not simply turning off, it is entering a different mode of regulation. In that mode, the usual boundaries soften. The mind does not need to supervise. The muscles do not need to perform. The eyes do not need to search. The body can become less outward and more inward. The skin, quietly, still speaks to the room. This is why the environment matters. The body cannot release heat into a room that will not receive it. If the bedding holds too much warmth, the heat gathers close. If the pajamas trap moisture, the sweat cannot evaporate well. If the pillow warms and stays warm, the head and neck may feel surrounded. If the room heats in the early morning, the body's own temperature rhythm may meet a warmer environment just when sleep is becoming lighter. The second half of the night is often more fragile. Sleep is not as deep as it was earlier. Dreaming may be more active. Awakenings may be easier. The body may be more aware of discomfort. A heat wave that might have been slept through at midnight can become a full waking closer to morning. This is why some people wake drenched at predictable times. Not because the clock is the cause, but because the night's biology changes as the hours pass. The balance of sleep stages changes. Hormone rhythms change. Breathing patterns may vary. Room temperature may change. Medications may rise or fall. Glucose may shift. The body's cooling needs beat the night's changing landscape. And somewhere in that meeting, sweat appears. If you are listening from bed tonight and you have lived this, you may know the feeling of waking into the aftermath rather than the beginning. The wave has already happened. The shirt is already wet. The pillow already warm. The skin already cooling too quickly now that air has found it. There can be a small shiver after the sweat because wet skin cools fast. That shiver can feel like a second problem, but it is often part of the same cooling story. The body overshot, heat was released, moisture stayed, the air touched the skin. Now, the body asks for warmth again. Too warm, then too cool. Blanket off, blanket on. Pillow turned, shirt changed. Sleep interrupted. This back and forth is one reason night sweats can be so draining. They are not only a heat event, they are a sleep event. They break continuity. They ask the mind to become practical when the mind was meant to be offline. They may wake a partner. They may create laundry and inconvenience and a sense of being betrayed by your own body. So let us say clearly, it is reasonable to be bothered by this. It is reasonable to want answers. It is reasonable to want your bed to feel like a place of rest again. And it is possible to seek those answers calmly. One of the most helpful practical moves is to separate occasional from persistent. Occasional night sweats after a warm room, heavy meal, alcohol, a vivid dream, a stressful day, or too many layers may be managed first by adjusting the conditions. Persistent night sweats, especially if they are drenching and unexplained, deserve a clearer review. The word persistent matters. The word drenching matters. The context matters. A clinician will usually want to know how often it happens, how long it has been happening, whether you have fever, weight loss, swollen lymph nodes, cough, pain, new fatigue, easy bruising, sore, bleeding, medication changes, menopause status, diabetes, thyroid history, infection risks, travel, sleep apnea symptoms, reflux symptoms, alcohol use, and other patterns. That sounds like a lot, but each question simply narrows the map. Each one moves the symptom out of the vague dark and into a category that can be understood. And if the evaluation is normal, that can also be meaningful. It can allow reassurance and monitoring instead of guessing. Sometimes reassurance is not someone saying, "Ignore it." Sometimes reassurance is someone looking carefully and saying, "We do not see signs of something dangerous right now, so let us support sleep, adjust what can be adjusted, and watch the pattern." That kind of reassurance has weight. It is earned by attention. The same is true for menopause symptoms. A woman who wakes drenched night after night does not need to be told only that this is normal. Normal does not mean easy. Normal does not mean irrelevant. Normal does not mean untreated. It means the pathway is recognized. It means there are conversations available, including lifestyle measures, non-hormonal options, and hormone-related decisions that depend on personal risks, history, age, timing, and clinician guidance. The details of treatment are not tonight's work. Tonight's work is dignity. The experience is real. The mechanism is real. The years it can last are real. And it deserves more than a shrug. For men, the same dignity applies. Sweating at night does not automatically mean low testosterone, but if a man over 50 has night sweats alongside changes in libido, mood, energy, body composition, erectile function, or other symptoms, it is reasonable to bring it up. It is reasonable to test rather than guess. It is reasonable to understand that male hormone changes can be part of the temperature story for some, while not being the answer for all. Again, the dignity is in not making the symptom smaller than it feels, nor larger than the evidence supports. That middle way is the after dark way. Calm, specific, grounded, kind. Now follow the breath for a moment. Inhale, and the chest expands. Exhale, and the body releases. Breathing too has its night story. When breathing is steady, the body trusts the dark more easily. Oxygen remains stable. Arousals are fewer. The heart does not have to respond again and again. The brain does not have to lift you toward waking to reopen an airway. When breathing is broken, the body may not stay in the deeper waters as easily. The sweat in that case is not the main character. It is a signal flare from a larger disruption. This is why the breathing bridge matters tonight. Not because every sweater has apnea, but because some people who wake drenched also wake unrefreshed, snore heavily, gasp, or carry a morning headache into the day. For them, the sweat may be one of several clues that the night is more effortful than it should be. And effort at night is not always visible. A person can lie still and be struggling. A person can be quiet between snores and still be experiencing repeated arousals. A person can wake only once and still have had many brief disturbances they do not remember. The body remembers differently than the mind. The body remembers in blood pressure, in sleepiness, in morning dryness, in headaches, in a heart that worked harder, in sweat. If this is your pattern, the compassionate next step is not self-blame. It is evaluation. Breathing can be supported. Airway problems can be treated. And when the night becomes less effortful, other symptoms sometimes soften with it. Now, let the map widen again. Medications. This is another place where people often feel uneasy, because a medicine may be helping one part of life while disturbing another. That does not make it bad. It makes it worth reviewing. The body over 50 may process medications differently than before. New prescriptions may arrive. Old prescriptions may be combined with new ones. Sleep may become more sensitive. Alcohol may interact more strongly. Heat regulation may shift. So the medicine cabinet becomes part of the night story. Not a source of suspicion, a source of information. The question is not, which medicine is guilty? The question is, what changed before the sweats began? And who can help interpret that safely? That is a prescriber question. The same calm logic applies to glucose. For people in a diabetes or glucose medication context, Overnight sweating may sometimes belong to the body's response to low blood sugar. It may come with vivid dreams, hunger, shakiness, confusion, morning headache, or waking unsettled. But it belongs in a careful medical conversation, because guessing is not enough. Patterns, monitoring, medications, meals, and activity all matter. The body is trying to protect the brain. Glucose is not just a number, it is fuel for the sleeping brain. If it drops too low, the body may release counter-regulatory hormones to bring it back up. That response can feel like a surge. Sweat can be part of it, and the person may only know afterward that the night was not smooth. Again, the message is not fear, it is precision. If this context belongs to you, bring it into the conversation. If it does not, let it pass. Not every cause belongs to every body. That sentence may be one of the most calming sentences in health. Not every cause belongs to every body. You do not have to carry every possibility tonight. You only need the map. The map lets you sort. Hormone wave, breathing signs, medication timing, diabetes or glucose context, thyroid-like symptoms, reflux clues, room heat, bedding, alcohol, persistent and unexplained with other symptoms. Each pathway has its own doorway. You do not need to walk through all of them. You only need to notice which ones are near you. And some doorways are very ordinary. A bedroom can be retuned. Imagine it now. The thermostat a little lower, the bedding layered instead of heavy, the fabric lighter against the skin, the pillow cooler, the fan not blasting, just moving the air, the neck uncovered, the water close enough that the body does not have to fully wake to reach it. The extra shirt nearby, if changing, helps you return to sleep without frustration. The plan made in daylight, so the night does not need decisions. This is not surrender. This is skill. You are making the room easier for the body. You are letting heat leave without a fight. You are giving sleep a better climate. And if the sweats continue despite that, then you have learned something too. You have learned that the room was not the whole story. That is useful. The body and the environment are always speaking to each other. When you change one and the symptom remains, you have narrowed the field. When you change one and the symptom improves, you have found support. Either way, you are no longer helplessly guessing. This is how calm observation becomes power. Quiet power. The kind that does not need to force. The kind that listens. And listening becomes especially important when the symptom has been happening long enough that you have started arranging life around it. Maybe you choose sleep clothes differently now. Maybe you avoid certain fabrics. Maybe you keep an extra shirt by the bed. Maybe you hesitate to travel because hotel rooms are unpredictable. Maybe you worry about staying in someone else's home. Maybe you wake and try to move quietly so you do not disturb the person beside you. Maybe you feel irritated at the laundry, then guilty for being irritated, then tired because the night was supposed to restore you and instead gave you another task. These details matter. They are not small to the person living them. Health information often compresses night sweats into a symptom line, but a symptom line is not a life. A life includes bedding, sleep, marriage, solitude, travel, work the next morning, the feeling of skin cooling too fast, the embarrassment of moisture where there should have been rest, the mental calculation of whether to get fully out of bed or try to fall asleep, damp. For adults over 50, there can be another layer too. The body may already feel as if it is changing in several directions at once. Sleep may be lighter. Recovery may be slower. The bladder may wake more easily. The joints may complain when the body turns over. Digestion may be less forgiving. Stress may linger longer in the body. The thermostat of the bedroom may suddenly matter in a way it never used to. Then night sweats arrive, and they can feel like one more piece of evidence that the body has become unfamiliar. That feeling deserves tenderness, because one of the hardest parts of aging is not only the change itself. It is the need to keep learning a body you thought you already knew. The old settings may no longer apply. The old bedding may no longer work. The old evening drink may have a different cost. The old confidence that sleep will simply happen may be shaken. But learning a new body is not failure. It is stewardship. It is attention. It is the work of living wisely in a body that is still here, still adapting, still asking for partnership. This is why the long version of this story matters. If we only say night sweats can happen because of menopause or apnea or medication, we have named causes but not honored the experience. If we only say, call a doctor if you have red flags, we have given caution but not comfort. If we only say, cool your room, we have offered a tool but not explained why the tool matters. The full story is more human than that. It says, the body cools to sleep. It says the skin is part of the sleep system. It says the thermoregulatory window can narrow with hormone changes. It says women can live with vasomotor symptoms for years, not days. It says men are not outside the story. It says breathing can turn the night into work. It says medications and glucose and thyroid and reflux can all press on the same sleeping body. It says simple things are not silly. It says serious patterns deserve care. And it says the person waking in damp clothes is not imagining the burden. That is the fuller truth. A night sweat is physiological, but it is also personal. And when something is personal, the voice around it must be careful. Not dramatic, not dismissive, careful. So if you are the person who has been dealing with this, let the care start with the way you speak to yourself. Not, here we go again. Not, my body is broken. Not, I should be past this by now. But perhaps my body is trying to cool. Something is pushing the system. I can notice the pattern. I can adjust what is simple. I can ask for help where help belongs. I can return to sleep tonight. Those are not magic words. They are a different nervous system environment. They reduce the second injury, the layer of fear or anger that can arrive after the sweat itself. Because after a night sweat, the body may already be activated. The skin is wet. The heart may be a little faster. The room may feel too warm and too cool at the same time. The mind may want to search for explanations. If the inner voice becomes harsh, the arousal rises. If the inner voice becomes calm, the body has a better chance of drifting downward again. This does not mean thoughts control night sweats. They do not. The sweat is physical, but the response to the sweat can either keep the wakefulness alive or help the night close around you again. That is a subtle distinction, and it is important. You are not responsible for causing the sweat with your thoughts. You are only invited to meet the aftermath in a way that protects the rest of the night. Change what needs changing. Cool what needs cooling. Write down what needs daylight attention, then let the body re-enter the dark. Sometimes a small bedside plan helps. A dry shirt folded within reach, a towel or light layer nearby. Water. A fan setting already chosen. A note on the phone or paper that says, if this happens, I will handle it calmly and track it tomorrow. The plan is not there because you expect failure. It is there because preparedness lowers the emotional charge. The body says, something happened. The mind says, I know what to do. And then the night has less room to become a drama. In daylight, the same plan can become a gentle pattern log. Not obsessive, just useful. Date, approximate time, how drenched it felt. Room temperature if you know it. Alcohol or no alcohol. Late meal or not. Medication change or not. Breathing clues or not. reflux clues or not, menopause pattern if that belongs to your body, glucose context if that belongs to your body, other symptoms if they are present. After a week or two, patterns sometimes reveal themselves. The sweats happen after wine, or after the heat turns on, or around a certain phase of stress, or with reflux nights, or with gasping, or with no pattern at all, which is also information. This kind of tracking should not become another burden. If it makes you more anxious, make it simpler. A check mark on a calendar may be enough. A note that says drenched, mild, or none may be enough. The goal is not perfect data. The goal is a clearer conversation with your own body and, if needed, with a clinician. Because the clinician who hears, "I sweat at night," has one kind of information. The clinician who hears, "for 6 weeks, 3 or 4 nights a week, usually around 3 a.m., enough to change clothes, no fever, no weight loss, started after this medication change, worse after alcohol, and my partner also notices snoring," has a much better map. Specificity lowers confusion. It helps the appointment become useful. And it can help you feel less helpless before the appointment even happens. The same is true if the pattern includes symptoms that need faster attention. If the sweats are persistent and drenching and come with unexplained weight loss, fever, swollen lymph nodes, easy bruising or bleeding, or a body-wide sense that something is wrong, the pattern log becomes a bridge to care. It helps you describe what is happening without having to rely on memory in a stressful moment. Again, this is not fear, this is stewardship. The body sends a signal. You receive it. You respond in the right setting. Then, when night returns, you do not have to keep receiving the same signal with panic. You have done the daylight part. This matters because sleep is deeply vulnerable to unfinished loops. An unfinished loop says, "What if?" A finished loop says, "I have a next step." The next step may be simple. Lower the room temperature and change the bedding. It may be practical. Review alcohol, meal timing, and pillow heat. It may be medical. Message the clinician. Review medications. Ask about thyroid testing. Discuss menopause symptoms. Evaluate breathing, or check glucose patterns. Whatever it is, naming the next step allows the night to stop pretending it has to solve everything. That may be one of the most healing things a person can do with a recurring symptom. Move the problem into the right time of day. Night is for noticing and returning. Day is for acting. The body can learn that rhythm too. Now, one more layer before we drift. There is a difference between cooling the room and chilling the body. Some people respond to night sweats by making the room aggressively cold. That may help for some, but for others it creates a new problem. Sweating, then chilling, then tightening, then waking more fully. The better target is often not coldness. It is breathability and release. Air that moves. Fabric that does not trap. Layers that can be adjusted. A room cool enough to receive heat. A bed that does not turn moisture into a cold shell around the skin. The body wants a path for heat to leave. It does not necessarily want to be shocked. That is a calmer way to think about the bedroom. Not an icebox, a receiving room. A room that receives the heat the body needs to release. A room that lets the skin do its work without forcing the body into extremes. That image can guide many choices. Breathable sheets, moisture-wicking sleepwear if helpful. Layered blankets instead of one heavy cover. A cooler pillow, airflow. A separate top layer from a partner. Less heat trapped around the head and neck. And for some, a conversation about whether a mattress or topper is holding too much heat. Again, these are not cures for every cause. They are ways of reducing load. The body may still need medical support, but lowering the load is rarely wasted. A body under less thermal pressure has more room to sleep, more room to pass through a hormone wave, more room to recover after a brief arousal, more room to return, and return is the word we want now. Not control, return to range, return to breath, return to sleep, return to trust. Now, as the night begins to soften, let the many causes settle into one image: a dark room, a body trying to cool, a window of comfort. Sometimes that window is wide. Heat can move out slowly. Sleep can continue. The night remains whole. Sometimes that window narrows. A small rise becomes too much. The cooling response opens quickly. Sweat appears. The night breaks. And sometimes the window is fine, but something leans against it from another room. A breath that keeps catching. A medicine working its quiet effects. A dip in blood sugar. An engine running warm. A meal that will not settle. A drink that widens the vessels. A blanket holding too much of the day. You do not have to name which one tonight. The body's job is still the same. Whichever it is, return to balance. It may not do it neatly, it may overcorrect, it may wake you, it may leave you damp and tired and irritated in the dark. But the intention of the body is regulation. The body was built to protect its inner climate. You were built with systems that watch temperature even when you are asleep. You were built with skin that can release heat. You were built with blood vessels that can open and close. You were built with signals that can wake you when something needs attention. Sometimes those signals are too loud. Sometimes they are uncomfortable. Sometimes they need medical help. But they are not meaningless. They are part of the body's conversation with the night. If the conversation has become disruptive, you are allowed to ask for help. If the conversation is occasional and understandable, you are allowed to adjust gently and let it pass. If you do not know which it is yet, you are allowed to observe for a little while in daylight. There is no shame in any of those paths. This is especially important for adults over 50, because too many people are told to normalize discomfort without understanding it. Night sweats may be common, but they are not trivial when they repeatedly steal rest. They can affect mood, energy, intimacy, laundry, confidence, travel, sleep timing, and the simple feeling of being safe in your own bed. So let this be a quieter permission. You can take the symptoms seriously without becoming afraid of it. You can make changes without blaming yourself. You can seek evaluation without assuming the worst. You can rest tonight even if tomorrow deserves a call. The night does not need to solve everything. The night only needs to carry you until morning. Now let the details begin to fade, not disappear, just settle. The thermostat, the skin, the cooling wave, the narrowed window, the breath, the medicine list, the glucose pattern, the thyroid question, the reflux clue, the blanket, the room, the clinician conversation if it is needed. Each one can take its proper place. None of them needs to crowd the pillow right now. Imagine placing each one on a small shelf in the daylight. Hormones on one shelf, breathing on another, medication timing on another, room temperature, bedding, and alcohol on another. Red flags on a clear shelf where they can be seen, not hidden. Then close the cabinet for the night. You know where the map is. You can return to it tomorrow. For now, the body can cool. The room can be quiet. The skin can dry. The mind can stop searching. If a sweat comes tonight, you can meet it more calmly. There you are, body, trying to cool, trying to protect, trying to return to range. Let me help you. Loosen the blanket, turn the pillow, sip the water, change the shirt if needed. Then lie back down. Let the next breath be simple. Let the next thought be smaller. Let morning handle what belongs to morning. There is a deep kindness in not making the night do the work of the day. The day can make appointments. The day can review medications. The day can look at patterns. The day can adjust the room. The day can ask about hormones, breathing, glucose, thyroid, or reflux. The day can decide. The night can rest. Even if it has been interrupted, even if the sheets are not perfect, even if the body has been loud, the night can still become quiet again. The cooling wave is still there beneath the disruption. It was there before the sweat. It is there after the sweat. It is the old rhythm of the sleeping body, moving heat outward, letting the core soften downward, making room for repair. The body may need support, but the rhythm itself is not wrong. It is one of the ways sleep arrives. One of the ways the deeper body lets go of the day. And perhaps that is the gentle reframe to carry with you. A night sweat is not proof that the body has turned against you. It may be proof that the body is working hard to keep you within a range. Too hard, perhaps. Too loudly, perhaps. Often with a reason. Often with something that can be adjusted, treated, watched, or understood. But still, at its root, it is a regulation signal. The body trying to keep the inner climate safe. Now let that thought become slower. Regulation, cooling, release. The skin as a shoreline, warmth moving outward, the room receiving it, the blanket light enough to allow it, the breath steady enough to carry it, the mind quiet enough to let it happen. Nothing to force, nothing to chase. Just a body in the night, doing its best to find balance. And if balance needs help, help can come. Not all at once, not at 2 a.m, in daylight, with calm, with notes, with a clinician if the pattern asks for one, with simple changes if the simple layer is enough, with respect for the fact that your body after 50 may be speaking in new ways. New does not mean hopeless. Different does not mean broken. Sensitive does not mean weak. The body changes. The care can change too. The room can change. The bedding can change. The questions can change. The support can change. And sleep can still be protected. Protected does not mean perfect. That may be important to hear. A protected night can still have a waking. A protected body can still sweat. A protected sleep can still be interrupted and then return. Sometimes we imagine healing as the complete absence of difficulty. But the body often heals in smaller ways first. The wake-up becomes less frightening. The room is easier to adjust. The sweat is less intense. The mind returns to sleep sooner. The pattern becomes clearer. The appointment is made. The medication is reviewed. The breathing is evaluated. The bedding is changed. The body is believed. These are not dramatic victories. They are quiet ones. And quiet victories belong to the night. Maybe the first victory is simply not panicking when you wake damp. Maybe the second is noticing that it happens after alcohol. Maybe the third is realizing the comforter is too warm. Maybe the fourth is telling your clinician plainly without minimizing it. Maybe the fifth is getting an answer. Maybe the sixth is sleeping through one night that used to break. The body learns through repetition. So does trust. Trust may not return all at once. It may return one cooler night at a time. One calmer waking at a time. One clear pattern at a time. One small change at a time. And while that is happening, you are still allowed to rest. You do not have to earn rest by solving every symptom. You do not have to become perfectly regulated before you are worthy of sleep. You can be a person in process. You can be a body in transition. You can be over 50, still learning, still adapting, still asking better questions. And you can rest inside that. The body does not need contempt. It needs partnership. The sweat may be inconvenient. The waking may be frustrating. The uncertainty may be heavy. But you can meet the body as something entrusted to you, not something attacking you. Here is the skin trying to release heat. Here is the breath, asking to be steady. Here is the heart, keeping time. Here is the brain, watching the inner climate. Here are the hormones changing the thresholds. Here is the room, either helping or holding too much warmth. Here is the night, still available, still spacious, still capable of receiving you again. If you wake, you can return. If you sweat, you can cool. If the pattern repeats, you can ask for help. If help is needed, receiving it is part of caring for sleep. And if tonight is simply a night to lie quietly and let the body settle, that is enough. Let the room be cool enough. Let the blanket be light enough. Let the next breath be slow enough. Let the body release what warmth it can release, and let morning hold whatever still needs a name.